and Joe Mixon was found not guilty. Let's go, baby. Which again makes perfect sense because at the end of the day, it was a he said, she said moment. There was no actual evidence of what happened. At the end of the day, the woman's story kept changing, depending on pretty much time periods. It was an absolute mess. I mean, there was no real concrete proof that Mixon did anything other than he drove next to her. That was pretty much that. And maybe a little bit of reckless driving as he drove away. That's all that was actually proven slash said. Everything else was a he said, she said, and nothing could be proven beside that. And again, like I said before, it's definitely an interesting situation, but she kind of sounded like a whack job. I ain't gonna lie to you. Based on what you guys told me, apparently saying, if you're gonna pull a weapon on me, you better use it is a common thing people say. But like I said, I still have never heard that myself. But you know what? I'm not gonna argue that. Nonetheless, though, keep in mind the NFL could still suspend him. And then you may say, wait, what are you talking about? He was found not guilty. Well, so here's the problem with the NFL. The NFL suspended Zeke Elliott after he was found not guilty by 14 different courts. He also was found not guilty by the NFLPA as they launched an investigation. And you know what the NFL and Roger Goodell said? You're still suspended for 6 games. So just keep that in mind. You could still be suspended even if you're found not guilty of a crime. If the NFL feels like you violated their policy in some way, they can still suspend you. But I do not think he will be suspended at the end of the day. This is a little bit different than the Zeke Elliott situation. Zeke Elliott actually, pulled someone's shirt down on live TV, and it was proven that he did that. There was a video, and that looked bad for the NFL. So I think that kind of also spelled into what the NFL did for suspending him. He's found not guilty. So just keep that in mind, all that situation. Hopefully everything works out and the NFL doesn't fluff us over here and suspend Joe Mixon anyway. But we should be fine moving forward, which is absolutely amazing. So other than the court case where, again, Joe Mixon right now is being sued, which, again, yes, we are back into this situation where he is being sued by the father of the victim about the shooting that happened at his house. So he's still being sued for that. I'm going to be honest with you, he'll probably end up being sued for this situation too. She'll probably end up opening up a civil case against him. Keep in mind, a criminal case is when you're criminally being charged. That's when you can go to jail. A civil case is pretty much a lawsuit. It's pretty much just someone saying, hey, listen, I don't like, something, and I'm going to sue you for it. Pretty much that's all it is. It's nothing at all, usually there's no actual proof. A civil case, the person who is accusing you has to come up with all the evidence to prove that you, theoretically speaking, did what you did so they can get the money. A criminal case, the state has to provide evidence to prove you did what you did. So just a little bit different here. But with civil cases, it's still legal trouble, obviously. But at the end of the day, he will have to go to court and testify and that kind of stuff. But it's a lot less than a criminal charge at the end of the day, right? So at the end of the day, if she can't prove anything, then it's beside the point. But again, right now she has not filed any civil charges or lawsuits right now. She might in the future. We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, here's what the article says. Cincinnati Bengals running back Joe Mixon found not guilty of aggravating menacing. A county judge ruled Thursday. The standard of reasonable doubt is the highest standard that we have in our justice system, as it should be. Hamilton County Court Judge Glenn Bender said before issuing her ruling. After a careful review of all the evidence presented at the trial, including the stipulations and testimonies presented today, I cannot say the city sustained its burden. Mixon has been accused of pulling a weapon on a woman after a road rage incident and saying he should pop her in the face, but Bender City prosecutors failed to present enough evidence to prove the misdemeanor aggravated menacing charge, which again, you kind of can't. The only thing, at the end of the day, the only way you could prove this, in all honesty, is if there was a dash cam footage in Joe Mixon's car or her car. That's the only way you can really prove this. Because looking at surveillance cameras and saying, well, two cars were next to each other proves absolutely nothing. Because if I'm next to each other in another car, I mean, yeah, technically you could say I said anything or did anything. But at the end of the day, you can't prove I did anything because there's no angle to show I did. And again, you're innocent until proven guilty. That's literally the most important thing when it comes to this, when it comes to law in this country. The alleged incident took place on January 21st, the day before Cincinnati Bengals faced the Buffalo Bills in the AFC Division Round playoffs. Mixon's defense attorney argued the woman, whose name was not disclosed in court, was enraged and not under the belief that Mixon would cause serious harm, which is the basics of aggravated menacing under Ohio law. Wait, whose woman now was not under the belief Mixon would cause serious harm. Wait, so she did not believe he would actually hurt her or use the weapon in any way, even though she did say, if you point a weapon at me, you better use it. So then, yeah, then that really disproves the whole entire charge. Because the point of the charge menacing aggravated menacing side is that you are threatening in some way the victim. You are, literally, you're threatening the victim in some way. I mean, you're making them feel like you're going to hurt them, or you're using something to act like you're going to hurt them. Obviously, once you hurt them, that becomes assault charges. That becomes used with a deadly weapon, etc., right? But at the end of the day, you are threatening them with a weapon. But according to her, she never felt like he was going to hurt her or in any way do anything to her. So that literally completely just throws out the case, because if the victim felt like, oh yeah, no, he wasn't going to do anything to me, then there's no case there. There's no point to even talk about. This was a waste of 4 days and him leaving training camp and not being in training camp. Attorney Merlin Shiverdecker said the group was happy with Bender's decision. Mixon did not make any statements after the verdict, and his counsel declined interview requests. The organization is pleased with this matter is now behind everyone, the Bengals said in a statement. We look forward for an exciting season with Joe being an important part of the football team. If Joe Mixon had been convicted, he would have faced up to a year in jail and a $1,000 fine. That's not true, ESPN. It was 6 months in jail. It was not a year. There was no way he was going to face up to a year in jail. I've looked at 7 different seven different websites on that, and my sister has been a lawyer for 10 years, and I asked her, it was a year, it was 6 months at most. It was not going to be a year. Mixon has spent his entire 6-year career with Cincinnati since the Bengals drafted him in the second round in 2017. He agreed to a restructured contract in July that has a cash value of $5.8 million and a $3 million decrease in his cash value in 2022. In 2022, Mixon made 14 starts and had 1,255 yards from scrimmage and 9 touchdowns. He is the 5th in franchise history in career yards and was selected to the Pro Bowl in 2021. 2 major factors were at the heart of this case: whether the victim was angry instead of afraid, and whether there was enough proof that Mixon indeed pointed a weapon. On Thursday, Shiverdecker cited an exhibit showing that Clinton County authorities went to Joe Mixon's house to see what kind of weapon might have been used. The woman said she saw a weapon, but was unable to provide detailed description. Joe has a lot of weapons, but there's no baby weapons, no small weapons. That's even remote match the nebulous description. Shiverdecker said while filling a motion for... Wait, hold up. Baby weapons. So you're telling me baby weapons? So, hang on, hold up. So I'm thinking about what a baby weapon would be. And I'm going to guess they're talking about like a Glock or something, right? Because when you say like not a baby weapon, again, this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking a shotty. I'm thinking a revolver. I'm thinking a some type of assault assault baby gun. You guys already know what I'm trying to say there. Like I'm thinking about those type of weapons when I think of, quote unquote, not a baby one. That's interesting. Okay, I mean, listen. If he's a weapon collector, that's on him. If he legally can have those weapons, no big deal at all. But that's crazy. Actually, that's okay. So pretty much, he has no weapons that you would be using. Holstering. I guess it would be. He has no weapons you could holster on your left or right hand side. So again, then him pulling a weapon would be, make no sense because he couldn't holster, a weapon that's that, like, not this, actually way longer, but I can't do it with the frame of the camera. So you know what I'm saying, guys. While Bender denied the motion that Mixon's defense opted not to have Mixon testify or present any additional evidence before closing arguments. In closing arguments, R. Scott Croswell, Mixon's co-counsel, did not dispute the claim that Mixon was driving erratically and cut off the woman, which was backed up by the video of the evidence that was introduced in the court. And that, yeah, he probably did. In all honesty, what probably happened here was exactly what the video showed. He probably did cut her off. And then he probably did, she probably flipped him off. And then he probably rolled his window down and said, blah, 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 you can go fluff yourself, right? And he probably did do that. And at the end of the day, is that bad on his character? I guess a little bit. But it's a road rage incident. Everyone makes mistakes in the moment. Everyone's like, oh, you should have handled yourself better. Okay, well, guess what? That's his life, okay? In the moment, somebody might say something or, be angry or whatever. But to try to escalate that to they actually threaten your life is absolutely ridiculous. That's just stupid, and that's beyond stupid. That's criminal. We are not here to determine whether Joe Mixon operated his vehicle properly or not, Croswell said. City's attorney Tim Horsley established that the woman was headed back to work and no idea Mixon was driving the vehicle until charges were initially filed. The case was initially dismissed in February to allow the city more time to investigate further before it eventually refiled the case in April. No explanation is provided for why she would have made this all up, and she's able to identify the person, the vehicle, and so forth, Horsley said. See, I still don't understand how she doesn't know who Joe Mixon is. I still don't understand how this whole situation even propelled, because based on what we heard yesterday was she wasn't going to file charges at first, but then her coworker told her she should. So this is such a weird situation. But a little more than 20 minutes after closing arguments, Bender ruled the prosecution has not met the burden requirement to convict Mixon. Yeah, there's not enough evidence. Like, at the end of the day, again, there is no evidence involved. There's not enough evidence to convict him. And listen, I don't like to think that people just make up complete stories because, at the end of the day, it's like, why? Well, it makes sense why you make up a story like this. There's two different reasons. Number one, because what you're hoping for is, because she's pressing charges, by the way. She's pressing charges in this case. Well, what you're hoping for is that there's a settlement. And that Joe Mixon goes and, hey, listen, here's some money. Go away. Shut up. Stop trying to charge me. And then that happens, right? That's number one, right? But again, if that was the case, then there's no way she didn't know who Joe Mixon was. Because her filing the charges would have been then malicious based on the fact she knew who Joe Mixon was. So that's number one. She obviously wanted money because she knew who Joe Mixon was, and she was hoping he would pay her to drop the charges. Number two is she wants to file a lawsuit / civil case after this. And this was, if he was found technically guilty of this, right, and there was enough evidence to prove he was guilty, then, or if somehow, some way he was found guilty, because again, there wasn't enough evidence, but let's say they did find him guilty, then she could sue him after that and say, you know what, you were found guilty of this, and I want to sue you for the damages you caused me. And she would have a case because he was already found guilty, so she would already have a case on that, right? She could then sue him afterwards. So I think that would be the only reason why he would, quote unquote, she would make up all this. But again, like I said, I'm at a point now, and again, like I said, listen, he was not found innocent beyond belief or doubt. Like, it wasn't 1000% like, oh, he did not do this. There was just not enough evidence to prove he did it. So that, I do want to say that right now, because that is a huge important point. Like, certain situations, like, the person clearly made up the whole thing. I think she did make up the whole thing. But at the end of the day, I mean, technically speaking, her situation, in a theory, could technically have been correct. But there's just not enough evidence to prove what she's saying is true. Right? So, it is what it is. But I will say, false allegations moving forward, we definitely need some kind of, like, law where it's like, listen, if you make false allegations, there's got to be some punishment. But this situation is very weird because, again, like I said, technically there was just not enough evidence to prove that he was guilty. But at the same time, yeah. I hope you guys understand what I'm trying to say. Like, it wasn't like a false allegations and, like, she just made up the whole story 100%. I think she did. My personal opinion, I think she did. But, again, there's a theory that she didn't. So, it's interesting. But you know what? It doesn't matter because this is behind us now and Joe Mixon is innocent and we're moving forward in a great way. So, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.